Welcome to Around the Barrel.
And there we go.
The first board we got had a glitch. Remember that?
We tried recording, and like all you heard was just in the headset the entire time. But all right, so we can't taste this yet before we know what it is. So
And you also have to eat the mic.
yeah, almost like spit into it. But bourbon barrel aged coffee from Blacksmith Coffee Roastery. We are so freaking pumped to try this out.
I hope it's
So,
good. So,
what was the idea behind this? Where'd that come from?
I mean, so a couple of years ago, one of my employees gave me a gift, for Christmas time. He was like, "Hey, you know what? I know you like coffee. Here you go." And it was, it was a bunch of bourbon coffee and whiskey coffee and things like that. And I was like, "That's actually really good." I cannot stand flavored coffee.
Really?
Yeah, I think that it's basically mark against against the craft and art and science of coffee. So yeah, this is not flavored coffee. This is it's absorbed flavor. It's not added flavor.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, local distillery. I was like, hey, you know what? Let's have a cool little collaboration. So yeah, and they were like all for it. And within a week, they were like, hey, you know what? We're actually dumping a batch of bourbon. We'll give you the barrel and let you have at it. So yeah.
Dude,
awesome.
Let's try it then. That sounds awesome.
Are the proportions pretty close?
Yeah.
I love it. I love black coffee. I love
You can really
strong
you can really
coffee.
taste it.
And like you, I like very little flavor, but it seems at times you have too much, it can just destroy everything. But this is like a campfire coffee right here. You're sitting around a campfire,
Hand me the bag.
Well,
and that is
well, I know our cups are black, but at least you can't see the bottom of the cup. That is good.
I am ready for the fall now.
Yeah.
I try this coffee outside a lot
So-
in the cold weather.
It's interesting when you read the tasting notes that maybe it's suggestive, right? Because I can definitely taste the vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
You know, caramel and vanilla.
Yeah, and that's also, I mean, those are notes that are natural to the coffee itself.
From Brazil.
From this particular Brazilian coffee, but that's also they're more highlighted from the aromatics, the bourbon, the residual bourbon from the barrel, kind of adds to the coffee.
So how long does it stay in the barrel?
So it will stay. Kind of depends on how fresh the barrel is. Like if it's still dripping with bourbon, I have to let it air dry for probably a month. But then I'll add the green coffee into it and let it age for about 2 weeks. Daily rotating the barrel to make sure that it's aging evenly, and the coffee is evenly absorbing the flavors. And then I'll take little samples and do little sample roasts of it to see where I'm sitting with the whole flavor components of it. If it's right on at 2 weeks, then I'll dump it and start roasting it. Sometimes it'll have to go longer, particularly if I've done multiple batches in a barrel. It will take a lot longer for that particular coffee to age. So I think this one, it's the second or third batch in this particular barrel, and so I think this aged for probably around 2 months.
Wow.
So
That's so cool.
I like because one big problem I have with coffee too is sometimes the aftertaste and that residual I have that coffee.
Yeah.
I like this after
It's a
one.
solid
It's
taste.
a good, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess the flavor I do like, I like hazelnut coffee. Like a little bit of that nutty kind of taste at times. But sometimes they can have a really weird aftertaste. This is a good, I don't smoke, but if I did, a good cigar with this too. I think it's just a good, I don't know, it's a good outside fall,
Yeah.
I don't know, backpacking
Lance,
coffee.
I didn't get your reaction. Do you taste it?
I like it. Yeah. I'm like Nathan. I just like a solid black coffee. I don't like all the frou-frou or anything. It's just this is enjoyable.
Creamer would destroy this, I think. Any kind of, in my opinion.
Absolutely. But what really makes this really good is like adding a little bit of cream and sugar to it.
Okay.
So it will really highlight the sweetness of it. And coming from me, as someone who just drinks black, or like if I'm doing espresso, it's espresso and cappuccinos, lattes, that's it. Like no flavor whatsoever. Having a little bit of cream and sugar in it, it makes this like actually phenomenal.
Well, I stand corrected. But you were mentioning that you partnered with a local distillery. Who is that? You partnered
So that's Smoky Valley Distillery in Marquette.
and how long have they been open for?
They're right there on Main Street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that they've been open for about 4 years, 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Okay.
I don't really remember. So
We'll have to try some of their whiskey then and have it on
it's
here
good
sometime.
stuff. I had to buy a bottle when I was.
Had to. I like the.
I had to. When I was doing some product research and like, is this gonna be good? I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
This is good.
So these guys know you. This is my first time to meet with you, and
Yeah, I guess we should introduce who you are.
I'm Samuel Finch, and I'm the general manager and head roaster of Blacksmith Coffee in Lindsborg. I've been with the company for 10 years now. This past April is marked 10 years for me. So I grew up in the area. Originally from Lindsborg, lived there until I married my wife, who's a Salina native. So that was 5 years ago. So moved here to Salina, but regularly commute for work. So
what got you into coffee? What they do? Where did that come from? The whole I'm gonna roast coffee and kind of get in the coffee business.
So when Blacksmith Coffee originated, it's in an original blacksmith shop in downtown Lindsborg.
Which you haven't been there, you need to go there. Really cool.
Yeah,
It's
a solid place with an amazing environment. So when it started, I was like, I'd never really thought much about what made coffee. And so after going in there a couple of times and tasting his coffee, I'm like, okay, this is really solid. I really love it. And really kind of always secretly hoped that, someday, hey, maybe I'll get a job here, But then at the time it was just a roastery. So Blacksmith Coffee Roastery. And then there was a local coffee shop called The Old Grind, which is where I started as a barista. And in 2000 and I started there in 2012. In 2015 or so, the owners of the coffee shop sold the business to a local family in Lindsborg, John and Jill Esping, and I've been friends with them for at this point for almost 25 years. So grew up with them, really, really close. And so, they bought the coffee shop in 2015 to kind of give their daughter, Molly, an opportunity to, just to run a business when she graduated high school, because she didn't want to go to college after that. So she was working at the coffee shop as a barista. So, I gave her the opportunity to just, get some business experience. And then I think it was a day or two after, opening under new management, the owner of the roastery said, "Hey, you know what? You want to merge businesses? You want to buy the roastery?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So undertook I think it was about a 10 or 11 month process of renovating the blacksmith shop to make it coffee shop ready. because it was pretty rough in there. There was a difference, like a height difference of like 6 inches of some of the bricks in the floor.
Nice.
So the team of construction workers had to pick each brick out of the floor individually, level the ground, and then put it back in. So it was really intense at that point. So, and when they merged businesses, they pursued me and said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to need someone to take over the roastery. Would you be willing to train as a roaster?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah."
Sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, I then started training in the roasting side, while at the same time continue to pick up some barista shifts here and there. It was about 10 or 11 months of training before, and the transition for the original owner of the roastery to phase out.
That was Mark, right?
Yeah, Mark Galloway.
Yeah. I used to drive over to Lindsborg before it was a coffee shop, and I'd annoy Mark. Lots of questions.
No, he's a great guy.
He was super nice, but he would because he got some recognition for like being barista stuff. Didn't he do some competitions and stuff?
Not to my knowledge.
He was just making things up. No, he was telling me about like where all the coffees came from, and of course it looked completely different with when it was just the roastery.
Yeah,
but
there's a lot that has changed in there. So all the production used to be up front, but now they did some construction and built a building in the back to have for the roastery. So and that's where all that happens.
And so because now there's the walk-up and drive-through shop here in town across from the Art Church area over there. When did that open up here in Salina?
We were crazy enough to do it during COVID.
Okay.
We opened right when COVID was like hit Salina. So April of 2020.
Man, that's brave.
Yeah. But you know what? It was like COVID really, people and businesses started transitioning a lot more to that.
Yeah.
To do like contactless and to-go stuff, drive-through stuff. And so it was actually really became a really profitable business move for us. So
did COVID affect the place down at Lindsborg quite a bit then
So the only thing that we majorly had to do was close our shop to in-store seating.
Okay.
We thankfully didn't have to lay any employees off. Didn't have to, cut back on really much of what we were able to offer. It's just that we couldn't, have people in our store.
Yeah.
A coffee shop is the people that come in.
That's pretty much half of it is the environment.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since we have such an awesome environment, not having people in the shop enjoying it was kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, thankfully, it didn't hit us as it hit a lot of small businesses.
Good.
So
We're sitting there, we should have just done this recording down there at the coffee shop and had the environment. That would have been.
Well, we're going to do more episodes.
Okay.
So that's
all right.
I remember when my little sister got engaged, they actually had their engagement announcement party at the coffee shop down there. Yeah. And it was one of the first time that we had all the families down there, and we packed that place out, and it was awesome. But again, it was just, there was tons of coffee, and it was awesome. And yeah, but if you haven't gone, the environment there, just the look and the feel is a really unique place. So
do you guys do like pastries or anything? Or
yeah, we make a lot of our own pastries that we sell, and we also partner with a local bakery in Lindsborg to get some of our stuff from. So,
Lance, you've had one of those cinnamon rolls before. I've brought you one.
Well, thank you.
So now we know where Josh is at all the time. He's
know.
not here in the office.
Man, I'm on an appointment.
I'm working at Lindsborg again, guys. And so,
I'm busy. I'll be there in a little while.
So when you make new coffee and new coffee flavors, where does that inspiration come from? Where do the ideas come from for, hey, we're going to do this or try this?
Really, a lot of it kind of comes from personal preference. Like, I have a preferred flavor profile with my coffee. So I like coffee that is naturally processed coffee. So that's really sweet, really bright, really fruity. And, I would light to medium roast. So I started off kind of thinking, you know what, maybe I try to find some of the coffees similar to that, but I also don't want to offer a product that my customers aren't as into. So I have to kind of balance that with, have a little bit more basic, breakfasty blend type flavors to it, darker roasts, things like that. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
No, you did. Yeah. I just didn't know like this one, just unique opportunities come up where, hey, we got some whiskey here. We want to try something together. Or
and this is definitely a unique thing that only a handful of people that businesses that I have found, like roasting businesses, are doing something like this. So I think that anytime that I can create a collaboration with another local business to help kind of promote them as well and promote what they're doing, that's something that it really excites me and gives me a lot of juice.
We wanted to do a Billings Group special roast, that's something we can maybe do then.
Yeah, possibly.
I have no clue that.
Sam's sitting there thinking, how much work is that going to take?
It's like, and we're done.
Well, the fruity part might fit in. So,
speak for yourself. But not
so I don't know anything about roasting. You talked about the beans in the barrel, and you take them to the roaster. What's the process like, and the equipment, is that an expensive setup to go into a business like that?
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to be basic, you can do in home roasting. You can do it in a skillet on your stove or a popcorn popper. But yeah, if you're doing something commercial like this, being a larger, like the roaster that I work on is a 12 kilogram roaster, cast iron drum roaster that is, fueled by propane. So, this particular one I had special ordered from a roasting, a roaster manufacturing company in Idaho. And every inch of the roaster is made in the U.S. and that's what I wanted to keep.
Cool.
So yeah, it's an expensive thing investment to get into. But the whole process of roasting is it's a lot of factors and variables that I take into account are first starting off with the coffee beans itself, where in the world the coffee is grown, and how the coffee is processed, what elevation the coffee is grown at, and how dark I want it to go. So taking these into account, I then will determine, okay, this is my ideal batch size for how much coffee I'm going to roast. This is how hot the roaster needs to be before I even drop the coffee into the drum. And this is how long the drying phase needs to be. This is how long the caramelization needs to be. This is how long the development time needs to be. So all of these, it's it can be a little bit intimidating, even for me to approach it. If I'm having or get this new coffee that is really outstanding, that I want to do best by this coffee and do best by the farmers that grew this coffee, I get a little bit nervous sometimes.
So do you start out with a small batch and, man, this stinks, throw it out?
Yeah, so I have a cool little sample roaster that actually hooks via Bluetooth to my phone. I can set a particular roast profile to it, and then it'll just, it's a touch and go type of thing. So I will am able to do 50 gram roasts, sample roasts in this, and then I'll cup it the next day to see, oh, that's crap, or oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So and then I will then try to convert that to a larger batch profile.
I'm sitting there thinking how many successes you have doing that and how many failures until you get to that success. It seems like that would be a process.
It is a process. And, when you're dealing with, coffee that is $4.45 a pound,
right?
You can't really afford to make too many mistakes. So
the part you mentioned, the parts of the world to buy the coffee. So I think the big two main parts people kind of think of is either Africa or Central South America. Is that kind of still the main? I mean, is there any other areas that you?
Yeah. So any area like on the globe between the tropics of Cancer and tropics of Capricorn, those regions are any countries that fall within those regions are kind of have ideal growing conditions. So for America, the only place is Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So
Kona or Kona blend.
Yeah, Kona, Maui, regions like that. So yeah, the coffee that I buy from, or the countries that I source from are like Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras. So those would be like your standard, and Mexico. So standard South America is Central America. And then Ethiopia, and for like pretty much that's the only African coffee that I get. And then Sumatra from like Indonesia. So
you mentioned elevation. So elevation does have that much of an effect on the bean then? And
yeah. So the way that I kind of explain it is, if you go to Colorado, the air is much thinner. So you have to work, your body has to work a lot harder to breathe, right? And you get a little bit... strain yourself just a little bit. Coffee is a similar way. So the higher the coffee is grown, the higher the elevation, the more the nutrients are a little less present. So the coffee tree has to work a lot harder to produce the coffee. And so the density of the coffee is a lot more, the coffee is a lot more dense, so, and more compact with nutrients. So, and nutrients come from, like the soil, from the amount of rainfall that it has, from sunshine exposure, things like that. So
is the flavor then, I mean, if it takes harder and it's not as much nutrients, is the flavor less on higher elevation then, or is it?
Not necessarily,
okay.
No.
So what's the market like for coffee? Do you have to be out there and be fairly aggressive when you're buying and selling, or is it a volatile market?
It is, and especially these days. It can be really, really hard to source. Like if I have a particular coffee that I really like, I need to contract quite a bit of that coffee to last me, for the next 6 months or so. That's a buying habit that I've had to kind of take on recently. It used to be that I was able to just call my importer and say, hey, I need this much of this coffee, and he'd be like, yeah, okay, great. But then he lately is be like, hey, you know what? Someone just bought all this coffee. This is like a good, okay substitute that I have for that. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more aggressive and forecast what my needs are for the year, and just kind of go from there. So yeah, it's a pretty volatile market because it's a commodity,
right,
that is sold on the New York Stock Exchange. Now, the coffee that I buy is not, but globally, it is something that it's traded. It's actually the number 2
commodity out there.
Commodity, next to oil. So the price really fluctuates.
Have you seen a big part of that this year with prices?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's been a pretty expensive year for coffee. Then.
So it's about, from last year, for instance, my Brazil shot up 90%.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah, it's it hurts, having to pay that much because I don't want to
it's hard to pass all that on.
Yeah, I don't want to compromise and buy cheaper coffee because a lot of times the quality of that coffee is not as good. So
now, Sam, you have Blacksmith in stores too? Some local
Some more. Give me some more.
places around Kansas, or
Yeah. So I have quite a few wholesale customers that I sell to. Coffee shops, grocery stores, and churches. I will roast for. So I've got quite a few. Not so much like locally, but they're more like regionally.
okay.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that I learned about that you have a coffee cart. I think you do that with your wife.
Yeah.
Cool. Tell us about that business.
Yeah. So, it's just we would get a lot of customers coming to a Blacksmith and say, hey, you know what? I want to have coffee at my wedding. I want to have, do an espresso bar for this event or something like that. We had never been able, had the equipment to be able to offer that to them. So my wife and I were like, you know what? We could use a little supplemental income. So why don't we just start our own little coffee cart and exclusively use Blacksmith? So, that's what we did. We started Freebird Coffee Co. back last July. Freebird is kind of a play on our name because our last name is Finch. And we have this family motto that Finches are free. We kind of take that from Galatians 5:1, that for freedom Christ has set us free.
Awesome.
So, we decided, you know what, let's start this, offer it to, have that as an option that we can promote to people who, want coffee for weddings, want coffee for, events or, business open houses, things like that. So, we've done pop-up events at, farmers market here in Salina, and, craft fair last year we did Tumbleweed here in Salina as well. So it's gone pretty well. It's haven't worked it quite as intense as I possibly could because, working full time.
Right.
Got 2 kids. I just wrapped up my master's degree, and so it that's something that has kind of taken a little bit of a backseat. But
What's
it's been a lot of fun.
What's your master's in?
I got an MBA from Kansas Wesleyan.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of educational training for coffee? Expanding your coffee knowledge?
Well,
any kind of?
Well, I did receive my roaster certification from the Specialty Coffee Association. So I had to I went to a campus, a certified coffee campus down in Tulsa for a week, and was trained on, a lot of technical stuff, coffee, a lot. And it's really intense. Long days. So and then take a comprehensive exam, and
Dang.
So it's nothing. Doesn't really mean a whole lot, but.
So have you heard of sock coffee before? Sock coffee.
Campfire coffee.
Oh yeah.
Growing up, that's all I ever had. We did a lot of camping, and my dad would make us use an old wool sock that was never able to be washed. You just had to shake it out and wash it out. And
so what kind of coffee did he put in there?
I don't remember. It's just a bunch of, but
I don't think it was this stuff.
10, 15 years of, continual different kinds of coffee. And then one year he decided to I'm going to wash this sock. I'm going to put it in the washing machine, get it completely, you'll get nice and clean for new coffee. Well, you put it in the washing machine. That became one massive pot of coffee in the washing machine. And
I've sat around his campfire a few times and have had that coffee, and it just makes the evening special or the early morning special.
Sam, would you drink sock coffee?
I would not, no.
I think I'm right there with you, buddy.
It's just another part of your education, bud. You need to.
I guess.
There could be a market for that.
If we bring the Knob Creek, or
You know how I said, I tell people just brew it how it tastes good to you. That I might make an exception to that one.
You've got to try it first.
So coffee, and this is an open-ended question. Josh, you might have your thoughts too. Is coffee an art or is coffee a science?
Yes.
And making it.
Yes. Both.
You're describing all these things about the soil, and I didn't even think about sunlight, which, it's kind of like when we were talking to Jim about the whiskey, he was talking about the water, and Yeah, there's so many factors that you can't control, but they're within probably a range of the environment that the coffee's being grown in. It's, yeah.
I just know sometimes when people make coffee, it's like, oh, you have to have this amount of water and you can't go over that amount of grounds. It's like,
well, so like when we were making this, you know, I have a couple of benchmarks and I kind of follow that guide on the back of the bag because I figure whoever created this probably has some type of, and I want to keep it within that range because I know if I don't, a lot of times the coffee is super watery and that's nasty. And if it's too dark, it's like I'm getting too much of, it's too intense, and so I'm not getting to enjoy that Goldilocks phase of the proportion of the. Yeah. And sometimes that's the grind too, because if the grind is too coarse or if it's too fine, then it's.
It can also. So grind size really plays is a major factor that plays into it. Not every grinder is created equal. You know, there's two main types of grinders. There's blade grinders and there's burr grinders. Blade grinders are just like little propellers that'll just chop the coffee up, and you'll get huge chunks of grounds. You'll get really small fines of grounds. You're going to be really inconsistent in your extraction. So I always recommend people get a burr grinder, get a high quality burr grinder. So what that is basically like these two gears that are grinding the coffee on each other. So you're going to get a lot more consistent grind size. Now you're still going to get some really small fines and some larger chunks, but it's a lot more easy to maintain certain consistency. Yeah. So that kind of plays a factor into it. So as far as the extraction goes, you touched on the amount of water that you're using, and that can, play into the extraction of it. On the other side, how much coffee you're using, things like that. So
it's interesting. I don't even know what it's called, but it's like the globe with the metal filter on on top. Yeah. Every time I make coffee, it seems way too strong in that. But I do like a French press version, and there's no paper filter on that. But I just cannot find a happy cup of coffee with that.
So that probably has to do with you're over extracting your coffee. So the water is in contact with the coffee too long. So what you need, certain things to take into account, like, okay, is my grind size too fine? Maybe
which
find
is
the grind
which
up.
is now that I'm thinking about it, of course I always grind it pretty fine when I put it in there.
Yeah, so coarsen your grind size up and quicken your rate of pour to kind of speed up the process, because what's happening is the water's just sitting in the coffee. It's continuing to extract. So you're going to get a lot more of those bitters out. So coffee actually extracts in like different layers. So the first ones are going to be like your acids. So that's kind of your baseline. Then the middle is going to be like your sugars and some of that natural sweetness. And then finally the bitters. So if coffee is like, if your extraction time is too fast, you're going to just get a lot of really intense acidity in your coffee. A lot of times, so it'll taste really watery, really sour, things like that. So if your extraction time is too long, you're going to get a lot more bitters out of it.
So ristretto is a real thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because I always thought that was just a fancy little...
So we go back to the sock coffee conversation where a sock sits in a coffee pot over a fire all day.
I'm just saying. Wow. Maybe it's a preferred way of growing up. But so, what's your favorite, if you have one, way to brew coffee? Either pour over or drip, or you mentioned French press.
Yeah.
Or does it depend on the actual kind of coffee?
It honestly depends on the coffee. Okay. People think that, hey, you know what? And this is also before, like my wife and I started our business of the coffee cart and have an espresso machine in our house, which is totally awesome now because I use it every day.
Did she get tired of your like experiments? Like,
No. She's like, no, she loves it. So prior to that, people would expect that I brew coffee the exact same way at home as I do at work. I'm like, I just like a regular pot. I want to make it easy on myself at home. But yeah, now that I have an espresso machine at my house, I was like, I'm just going to do it that way.
Is there any other coffee roasters that you really like? Or do you just like your coffee?
So the nice thing about working in coffee is you don't have to pay for your own. So I haven't bought a bag of coffee in I don't know how long.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna enjoy the perks, no pun intended, of of working in coffee and just drink Blacksmith. So
do you travel then and like try and sample other coffees? Just kind of see like, hey, here's how do you guys do this, and try to get some ideas.
Yeah. So like whenever my wife and I travel, we always look for two things: coffee shops and wood fire pizza. So
is wood fire pizza maybe an introduction into Blacksmith Coffee down the road, where a combination?
Who knows? Maybe
that would be a cool one. I just saw that. I think it's Brio. They make like smokeless campfire rings like that. They have a pizza oven now, and it's pretty small and compact, but you can either have it by propane or by just fire. And I was like,
yeah. So yeah, we'll travel and test out different stuff. I always get espresso. If they have a coffee that I like on pour over, I'll get that, or I'll get like a cappuccino or something like that.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'm really basic, but I'm also a purist. So
at one time, I was going to buy a small roaster for my house. I never did it because I'd jack it up too much. Like the ones that kind of like, I was like, not like that size. And at that time, I read a book called The History of Coffee. And it's just kind of back to when they think coffee was first found in Africa. But there's one part on there I was reading about that when Europeans were first introduced to coffee, the Pope wouldn't let them drink it because Muslims found it, and he thought it was from the devil. And so he thought that because Catholics had wine, this was Satan's introduction for drink to try and tempt Catholics to convert away from Catholicism over to Muslim or to Islam. And so I guess when there was a big uproar, it was like, we want coffee, that before Europeans could have coffee, the Pope had to bless and pray over the coffee before Catholics could drink it.
yeah, I've heard that same story. A version I've heard is like it was a bunch of archbishops who say, you know what, hey, you know what, this is bad coffee. He's like, or this is the devil's drink. Yeah. And then he's like, well, let me try it. And he's like, this is amazing. We are going to redeem this in the name of Jesus Christ. So
religion finds it's hanging on everything apparently. But yeah, when I read that, I was like, there's no way that's true. But I can see it being true. I feel like after like an aftertaste, and maybe it's just in my head, like it really does have like a bourbon aftertaste. Like you can taste like a slight bit of bourbon behind it.
Yeah, so that was always my intent, is like I didn't want it to be so overpowering bourbon flavored or so overpowering coffee flavor that you couldn't distinguish the two. Now like my first initial batches, like in a fresh bourbon barrel that is still so potent with the whiskey, it was very overpowering. So but my intent was have a coffee first bourbon finish. So
you were mentioning that this tastes really good cold, and as the temperature has went down, I'm thinking a cold brew, I think I'd even like it more.
Really?
And I actually taste the bourbon on the front end when I first, which then thinking about it cold with a little bit of cream and sugar.
Yeah. Yeah, so the sugar, like in my experience, the sugar and the cream together will really highlight that sweet caramel and vanilla
it's my
flavors.
coffee old fashioned. That's what it is.
Hey, that is I think we should have that in the office continually for people. Is this a special roast, or is this available all the time then?
So this is something that's just going to be a special roast.
Okay.
It's been available for a while just simply because of the demand that I've had for it. But yeah, something that I'm going to just have around for a little bit longer. But I'll probably bring back in the future, as sort of like a kind of a seasonal type collaboration. So yeah.
Does the different barrel, like a different bourbon, affect the taste and the flavor, you think?
I don't know, really.
Okay.
If like the different type, like if oak barrel tastes different than another type of wood or what. So yeah, I don't really know how to answer that.
What are some of your what are some of the most well-known or favorite coffees from you guys that your customers just want the most? Repeated requests for coffee.
So we, being a Swedish community in Lindsborg, we have a line of Swedish blends that we offer all the time with varying roast degrees. So the Swedish melon roast is going to be like our kind of a medium roast, really, that's going to really highlight a lot of sweetness, a lot of kind of milk chocolate flavors to it. Then the Swedish mork roast is going to be a darker roast, which is going to give you a little bit more earthy tones to it. Still get some nice dark chocolate notes as well. And then the Swedish Skåne roast is our French roast. So that's the one that's going to be really extra dark, robust, smoky flavored. So those three are some of our most popular, just because they're iconic to us as being in a Swedish community. We also have a Kansas blend, which is kind of one that it's really popular, that is kind of intended to be reminiscent to a lot of things Kansas. So I've sourced coffees that are kind of similar to things like elderberry and sandhill plum, milk chocolate, things like that. So those are some of the tasting notes on that. And then, of course, our signature blend, the Blacksmith blend, is just really iconic, and just pays a lot of homage to just our shop in general. Just really unique and artistic, yet robust. And
you see a blacksmith shop, sock coffee together. That just sounds like it has to go together. And
Sam, do you think there's a chance there could be a sock coffee blend?
That might be your last batch you ever make. How about that?
Probably.
So in Lindsborg, what I'm trying to think the name of the fish that they have that's kind of a pickled fish.
Yeah, pickled herring.
Herring, yeah. Are you going to get a coffee that will go with that?
Again, that's the Knob Creek. You just pour that afterwards.
Have you tried the pickled herring?
I've lived in Lindsborg for 25 years and never tried pickled herring.
Okay.
So never had any desire whatsoever.
I've smelt it. And I was like,
no desire whatsoever.
Now, there's a pancake day, right? Or is there some day that there's just
waffle dogging? Is that what you're talking about?
I guess so. I just was told, I showed up there one time and they're like, it's pancake day or waffle day.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the last several years, Lindsborg has done what is called waffle dogging, which is it's a pseudo holiday in Sweden. I don't really remember what the historical significance to it is, but it lost some in translation to it used to be waffle and ended up becoming a waffle. So we just thought, hey, you know what? Let's just make waffles and
the whole town making waffles and
so,
drinking Blacksmith coffee.
Yeah, it's grown into something that is very, very big and popular in Lindsborg. So a lot of the local businesses will have their own twist on waffles, and customers will just come in from all over the place, just specifically for that. So I think this and it's always in March. Okay. So this past March we did 300 and some waffles. Something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, it was nuts.
You had me try, I think it was the Christmas blend you guys and
Bright and Merry.
Bright and Merry, yeah. That one was really good.
Yeah, so every Christmas I come up with a new blend.
Okay.
For the holiday season. So I kind of my system that I kind of go through to when approaching this new blend is, I want to pick flavors that are sort of iconic to, the holiday season. So, like cinnamon or, fruitcake or whatever, chocolates, things like that. They're just like really, really symbolic to what tastes like Christmas. So then sometimes I'll talk to my my importer and say, hey, you know what, give me coffees that taste like this, 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 and this. And then he'll give me recommendations. I'm like, okay, I'll take this coffee, and this coffee. And then I'll then kind of, sample roast each one individually. And then try them at different ratios of each coffee together to see what tastes good.
So how do you flavor a bean? Like when you have like a hint of cinnamon or whatever it is, or of hazelnut.
So those are flavors that are natural and innate in the coffee itself. So those are ones that it takes on through the growing process. And also through the actual processing of the coffee. So there's no added flavor to it. So throughout the roasting process, depending on how light, how dark I go with the coffee, a lot more of those flavors are going to be highlighted.
Can you infuse flavor then into a bean?
So that's what this is. This is more like kind of an absorbed. Like this bourbon coffee is more of an absorbed flavor.
Gotcha. Okay.
So green coffee is very porous, and it kind of it will take on over time. It'll take on the flavors of its environment. Same with like roasted coffee.
Okay.
So I don't like adding flavor to coffee. Like I used to make a lot of flavored coffee, and I just like, this is I can't in good conscience do this anymore.
Does that affect your roaster when you're putting, is it oils or how do you do that?
So like when flavoring coffee, so that would be something that I add after I roast.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
I don't know if that, I was thinking that might taint your roaster.
Yeah. So that's definitely something that I didn't want to definitely don't want to ruin my equipment with. But that when I was doing flavored coffee, as coffee comes out of the roaster, it's very porous, as I mentioned, so there's a certain point as it's cooling down, those pores start to close up a little bit, and so as the coffee's cooling down, I need to add the flavor at a specific point to have it penetrate the inside parts of the bean. But I can't do it when the coffee is too hot because the flavor has a certain flash point. And there would be times like when I'd be so busy, I'm just going to dump it and then add the flavor, and it would just vaporize right away. And those are my dark days. Like I said.
Man, dude.
Do you know how many pounds of coffee you do a year? Have you kept track of that?
Oh,
is it constantly increasing?
It's, I think, steadily increasing. It kind of goes through portions of busy, slow. I do probably, not as much as you may think. So maybe 30 to 50,000 pounds a year, which is still pretty small.
That's a lot more than I thought. So
it's amazing.
So what's next then? Like you look at, here's where we are right now. What's the vision, or what's the future of what you would like and you guys want Blacksmith to look like down the road?
I think that, someday it would be nice to open up another location here in Salina, because we have a lot of really faithful customers who come to our drive-through location here in town, but are saying, like, we want to be able to sit down and enjoy this, bring friends, bring family, and just sit down and in a Blacksmith location here in Salina. And so that's something that I think that I would like to see us do. Continue to grow our market value in the in our retail and wholesale accounts. I would like to see us in more coffee shops and grocery stores, restaurants. I think that'd be really, really cool to get into. So, and maybe more local collaborations.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you mentioned like churches too. Like, hey, we're trying to get. I think that's a cool area to do it. Is I mean, it sounds like there's a faith background with you, and it's a cool partnership to like, hey, look at some local churches and hey, let's partnership together somehow. I think that's a really cool thing to do. And is there a concern then that if you get too big, let's say, hey, we do open up one in Salina or somewhere else, that could taint the quality? Is that ever a concern?
Yeah. It's always the anytime that you grow any business, there's a certain risk that you take to certain things being compromised on. Or
would you, if you did open up one somewhere else, would you only still have, hey, we're only going to roast it in Lindsborg, and then just have, or would you like, hey, we're going to do an actual roastery somewhere else too?
That could be something that we haven't really. I had sat down with my boss and talked, like 5 years, like I want to see us do this or that. So like if we were to do something like have a multi-location type thing, I think that it'd be best to have like one central, like roastery. However, part of what we do is as like a Blacksmith Coffee Roastery is just like reminiscent of where we're located. And so like, what I always say, I roast coffee similar to the way that these blacksmiths in this location fabricated their craft. And so everything that we do, from the roasting to the espresso bar, everything that we do, we pay homage to the blacksmiths. We pay homage to the farmers and the importers and everyone who's touched the coffee prior to us. And I think that that's something that probably would be the thing that is most compromised on is the integrity of the brand. If we were like to move the production to a different location, or even really have like multiple locations. So I think that that's something that we're very proud of. We're very proud of our brand identity and our location, and something that would, if the opportunity arose in the future, would have to be taken very carefully and very tastefully handled. I think
the environment. I mean, like I said, the environment affects the flavor too, and whether it's in your mind or not. But like you said, having a cup of coffee in that environment in Lindsborg is a whole lot different than having it somewhere in a nice, polished, clean shop. It's a complete difference there. Yeah. And so I'm seeing your shirt right here. Do you guys do apparel then too? Do you guys have? Okay.
Yep. We just recently got a fresh batch of merch.
Where do people go to find you guys? If you have a website, people can order stuff through? Or?
Yeah, we blacksmithcoffee.com, and I ship anywhere in the country.
Awesome.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still having the bourbon aftertaste. That's incredible. This is.
So I do have one more question. In the shop, there's the mannequin that I don't know if has it become like a famous thing? Because you guys have stickers.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that, or is that
somebody
else's thing, or what is?
He's referring to Granny Sadie, who is the hideous mannequin that greets everybody at the door. Yeah, so she was purchased by the original owners of the coffee shop because she was like reminded them of reminded the original owner of her mom, and she's just a hideous looking creature. So, and I've worked so hard over the last 10 years to try to get rid of it, and. But unfortunately, a lot of people are like, "Hey, you know what it is? This is a something that we've put on stickers. She's making money for us, and she's got hashtags. She's even the Wi-Fi password." And I'm like, okay, she's here to stay finally, apparently. So, but the most terrifying thing is like she has become like an object of pranks. So when my wife and I got married, my staff, they took about a dozen pictures of her face and went to our house and posted them all over our house. And so when we get home from our honeymoon, and there she is all over the place, and her face like right above our bed and on the toilet seat.
We need a picture of Granny Sadie for the podcast.
Yeah.
So then, like when Molly, the Esping's daughter, got married a couple of years ago, I decided, you know what,
Return the favor?
we're gonna return the favor. So we actually took Granny and put her in their house, like the actual, not just the picture, but the actual mannequin. Put her in their bed, and she scared the bejesus out of her husband.
That would be terrifying. Yeah. Oh man.
That's awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on here,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. No, thanks for having
a lot
me.
of fun. We really appreciate it, and I want more of that before it gets out of circulation, because that stuff is incredible.
You got it.
And I might even try making it in a sock just to see if it has any difference in there over and open. Nice, open, slow fire.
And we're going to have to talk about maybe having you bring your card out and
Yeah.
a client event and doing some
Definitely.
espresso.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
So your main shop is right there in Lindsborg
It's
on Main Street.
122 North Main.
Okay. That's just north of the main intersection there in town. Okay.
Maybe for one of our barbecues. We had the barbecue at the park and have like a little coffee cart there with the barbecue. That'd be kind of cool.
That'd be awesome.
But yeah, again, man,
All right.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
This has been a
most
lot of fun.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been awesome,
Thanks for the coffee. That was good.
Excellent.
dude. That is like that after flavor is
I think I
really
like it.
good.
Really cool.
Content here is for illustrative and educational purposes only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice. Nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Market conditions change continuously. Past performance is no guarantee of future results or success. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities offered by registered representatives through Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory products and services offered by investment advisory representatives through RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. RFG Advisory, Billings Group, and Private Client Services are unaffiliated entities.